Hey folks, thank you again for coming on to Back to Basics for Season 3. Today we're going to speak with Emma Weiner, and we're going to find out what she's all about. But there's one thing that we did talk about is public speaking. Public speaking is one thing that we don't think much. You know, anyone can just go on stage and talk, but can they really talk? Well, we'll find out when we get on to the episode on Back to Basics. Let's get on the call there. I'll see you there. Bye, guys.
Hello, my name is Emma Weiner. Thank you to Back to Basics for inviting me over. Don't forget to subscribe and to keep listening. And remember, everything in life is going back to basics.
Hi folks, thank you again for coming on to Back to Basics. Today we're going to speak with Emma. We're going to find out what she's all about. But there's one thing that we both have in common is that we're all about voice. We're all about voice language and how to shape it up a little. And that's what we're going to go and talk about today. How important is it when it comes to vocal, when it comes to voice, when it comes to audio? So before talking to anyone else, why don't we speak with Emma and why don't we find out what she's all about? So let's bring her in. Emma, how are you? Thank you for coming to Back to Basics.
Hi, Girish. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm really excited for this podcast today.
Awesome. Thank you again for coming here. I'm very honored for you to be here, and you have absolutely supported me even offline. So thank you again for that. You know, Emma, before we get into the basics of that whole topic that we talked about a few minutes, well, I talked about a few minutes ago, what does back to basic mean to you?
I think it's really about stripping everything down to its component parts, to what's really essential. So there's nothing added, there's nothing else you could take away that would make it just makes it so much easier to implement. Because for me, when things are taken back to the basics, it means you can implement it, because there's a big difference between cognitive knowledge and like somatic knowledge, so the doing bit of it. And for me, if you take something back to its real basics, it means that you, everybody can actually implement it. And that's when you see the real difference. That's when you see the change happening. So for me, it's about that.
Thank you again, Emma, for answering that question. Thank you again for coming here. You know, let me ask you this. Before we get to the details of the topic today, how how did you get into the vocal side of things versus video? Because people, they usually go the video aspect of it because it's very attractive, isn't it?
Yeah.
So how did you shift over? Is that the right word I should be using?
So I mean, my journey into voice was quite an interesting one. So I have been an entrepreneur for quite a long time. I actually trained as a speech and language therapist, loved the work, did not enjoy it. So for your North American audience, I was a speech and language pathologist, loved the work, but didn't enjoy working in our healthcare system. So I joined a startup, and they were delivering events all over the world for pharmaceutical companies. So my sort of semi-medical knowledge was really handy. And I ended up working with the speakers on their event to make sure that their messaging was consistent. And I loved it, absolutely loved it. Then I had my kids, didn't want to keep doing that work. And so I stopped doing that work. And I stayed at home for 8 years. And in those 8 years, I just started to lose my voice, as in I lost my confidence. I didn't really know what I had to offer. I was unsure of my value or my place in the world now that I was a mother and not somebody who worked in business. And then I discovered the master's degree in voice coaching and training at Central School of Speech and Drama in London. I'm like, that's it. That's what I want to do, because I want to get my voice back. And I did it. It was incredibly hard work, like literally the hardest thing I've ever done, but it was transformational. So I came out having really refound my voice, but also having found a passion for helping other people really find and use their voice. So for me, voice is really about your expression of the most internal thoughts and feelings. And if you can do that authentically, then you connect with other human beings. And there's nothing better than that.
Yeah, thank you, Emma, for explaining that. And you know, we'll go to the examples if you don't mind. Let me ask you this, right? Um, if I tell you to say the words, "It's not what you think," and you say that in a funny way,
Yeah.
say that in a sad way,
Yeah.
say that in a crying way, how would you do that? Because I think it's different levels of frequencies when it comes to voice, right? So you want to go
Yeah.
with that?
Yeah, so absolutely. So it's to do with our intonation. So the intonation is the rise and the fall of your voice. So you can say exactly the same words in completely different, using different tones and different rise and fall of your voice, and it will mean something different. I mean, like, to give like the most obvious example of that is like if you hear someone say, "It's fine," or "I'm fine." So the words are saying everything is fine, but the tone of voice is saying anything but fine. So tell me your sentence again.
The sentence is going to be, "It's not what you think."
It's not what you think. Okay. So if you there's different ways to approach this. So an actor would approach this from thinking about the intention. So if I was going to say this with the intention of thinking this is really sad, you get yourself into that mindset of thinking it's not what you think, and you embrace the emotion of it, and then you would just allow your voice to come out.
Mm.
Now, if you're going to spend a lot more time, and if I was an accent and dialect coach, and this is what people on film sets will do, we would actually write that sentence out and we would draw a pattern of the rising and the falling tone, and we would make that really clear to the actor or to the person, and we would make them practice it until it really, really worked, until the intention and the sound were connected. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. It does make
Yeah.
sense. So, I've heard some few jokes that people have said, but it was a monotone. So I couldn't tell that if it was a joke or a
Yeah.
punchline or just a sentence itself.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
or I should say the dry joke, right? As people they call it. So what do you think of that part?
Definitely. So the tone of your voice helps your listener understand how they should feel about what you've just said.
Hmm.
So if you say something like, "Oh, I love that," it's like it doesn't really give you much information about how you need to feel it about what I've just said. Whereas if I said to you, "Oh, I love that,"
Hmm.
you're much clearer about how I feel about it, and therefore how I think you should feel about it.
Hmm.
Does that make sense? All
It
I
does.
did there was extend the vowel.
Hmm.
Like the words are the same. I just made the vowel longer because
Hmm.
our vowels carry the feeling of the content that we're about to talk about. So it just helps your audience understand how they need to feel about it. So if you're presenting at work, if you are doing a podcast, your tone of voice, the way that you use those vowels will help your audience feel what you need them to feel
Hmm.
or not. If you don't use it, if you are monotone, it's really hard for your audience to judge what they should be feeling. There's no subtext for them. It's just they have to kind of work it out from literally just what you're saying, and that's actually quite hard work.
Hmm. But Emma, when you just said the way you said it, and I was trying to replay in my mind, it actually sounded like that you were excited with that voice.
Just as I just spoke just then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. So people have to listen very carefully when it comes to, excitement, sadness,
Yeah.
happiness, whatever you want to think, right? I mean, the expression needs to come out of your voice. So,
Absolutely.
so does it sound like that I'm excited to speak with you today, or am I really boring you today?
No, you've got good rise and fall in your vocal tone. So it suggests to me that you're interested in what you're talking about. So if I try to make my voice much more monotone, so I'm now using the same words that I might use normally, but I'm just not allowing my voice to go up and down. I
Hmm.
just don't sound as engaged with what I'm saying.
Hmm.
Whereas if I just relax now and I just let my voice go up and down, because I love talking about what I do and love talking about voices and I love talking about connecting with your audience,
Hmm.
I just allow my excitement to come through and it just naturally modulates my voice up and down.
Hmm.
And what stops people from doing that, what creates that monotone feeling is often fear. So, people are fearful of being judged, they're fearful of being over emotional at work or being, too much for other people. And
Hmm.
so they regulate their voices back down into this very narrow kind of bandwidth that
Hmm.
just doesn't sound exciting. And like I say, then you just don't know how to interact with the other person.
Yeah, thank you for explaining that, and thanks for understanding my frequency when I'm speaking with you. But Emma, let me ask you this, right? When let's say if I'm going on stage and I've done several public speakings,
Yes.
right? But how do you engage with people
Yeah.
by eye to eye, voice to voice, or I guess topic to topic, or what have you? I mean, what are your thoughts on that part?
Yeah, so engaging with our audience is so important, because if we don't have that engagement, that personal engagement, then we could just be anybody, right? You could hand your script to anybody. Anybody could go out there and they could say what you were going to say.
Mm,
So we really need to personally engage with our audience. So there's a couple of things that are really, really important. So body posture is really important. So having your body posture so it's open, so that you're chest to chest with that audience. I was working with some clients last week, and one of my clients was sort of had her shoulder towards the back of the room and one shoulder towards the audience. So it looked like she was about to leg it out of the room the second she'd finished speaking. And it broke down that level of trust that we create with the audience. So facing your audience, really fully facing them, so important. And having your shoulders back and relaxed so that we don't look like we're protecting ourselves in any way.
mm,
That's the second thing, is protecting yourself. So sometimes when we're facing an audience, we can put our hands in front of our body, so particularly in front of our tummies, or we can hold our hands together. It looks like we're protecting ourselves from the audience. So it looks like we don't trust them. And
mm,
again, it just makes it very difficult to engage. And then eye contact, as you said,
yeah.
so important,
Mm,
that we are really looking at our audience. Now, it's easy to think about an audience as a big block of humans,
mm,
but they're made up of individual people.
mm,
So important to really connect with those individuals who are out there when you're making your different points. And then it feels like when you connect with that individual, you're connecting with all the people around them.
mm,
So very important to make eye contact and avoid what I call lighthousing. You
mm.
know, when you watch people watching a tennis match and they do that whole kind of looking from one side to
Yes,
the
yes,
other and then
yes.
the other side, we don't want to be doing that on a stage, because it just then feels like you're not connecting with anybody. You're not saying anything to anybody, therefore you're not saying anything to everybody.
Mm.
So those are the physical things that are really, really important. But then
So,
you can think about the structure in terms of how you engage as well.
of course, of course. Emma, let me ask you this. There was a celebrity interview which I saw a couple of weeks back. Okay,
Mm,
I admire that actor. Okay, we're not gonna name actors here,
mm,
but the thing is, he's an amazing actor when it comes on movies and TV shows and theaters and whatever he has done.
mm,
But when he was on an interview, I'm telling you, he totally sucked.
really.
So is it because the self confidence is not there? Because when you're speaking in public, when I say public, I mean the interviewer, or I
Mm,
should say the host.
mm,
So do you think there's a difference between the ambience and he feels more comfortable versus the camera in front of you, like I'm speaking with you? What are your thoughts
mm.
on that part?
I think I think it's really interesting. And when I work with a lots of actors, this was so true. As individuals, they weren't necessarily super confident. They
Mm,
they suffered with quite low self-esteem. Some of them,
mm,
even very good actors who had, a high degree of success,
mm,
they would not feel great about themselves. And when we don't feel enough, we don't come across well on camera or in life. We will hold back on things. We will crumple our body in a little bit. Our modulation, our tone becomes a little bit flatter, all of those things. And we just don't sparkle.
mm,
But give an actor a character who is not themselves, whom they can then plow all their thoughts and feelings and emotions into, then they come alive. So
mm,
it's really interesting. Sometimes we see these people who can create incredible, truthful characters that we really connect with. When we meet them as human beings,
mm,
we are less impressed, because I genuinely think it's because they don't have the personal confidence to
mm,
really show up and shine. And the
mm,
actors that have that as well in their personal lives as well as in their acting lives do incredibly well in
mm.
terms of interviews and podcasts and all those other things that they do.
But Emma, I think the right word we're both are looking for is I guess just not comfortable. Maybe that's just what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe they just don't want to open up that onion about themselves into the public. They'd rather speak about the character or the movie or whatever they're playing. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And some people choose to have that very kind of delineated personal life and professional life. But that
Mm,
doesn't mean you can't be engaging and pleasant and kind and,
exactly. Exactly.
very um, honest and truthful with your interviewer. But you don't have to necessarily expose every detail of your personal life. Emma Watson, I don't know if you know her, she played Hermione Granger in the Harry Potter thing. She was
Yes.
very good at that. She
Yes.
never discussed her private life,
Mm,
but she was very personable on her interviews and engaging and, you know, very willing to sort of share up to that point of like, that's my private life. Everything else we can talk about, but not this.
Yeah, exactly. I
Um,
mean, you can always put a shield when you're speaking, right? I mean, it doesn't mean that you have to be scared about it. I mean,
no.
that's another topic that we can talk about later on. But
Yeah.
Emma, let me ask you this: when it comes to vocal ID, uh,
Mm,
voice ID, I've been hearing those words a lot in the digital world.
yeah.
So, what are your thoughts about that? Do you know anything about that?
I don't actually. Tell me more, and I'll give you my
So,
thoughts.
so there's a TV documentary that I was watching almost a month ago, and when people they pass away, and
Mm.
that's not the right way, but people they do pass away, how do you save that voice of
Ah,
that person? So they save that voice, their dialogues,
mm,
their behaviors, their singing or whatever it is,
mm,
right, into a database. And whenever they want to hear it, the hologram comes up and starts speaking to them.
mm.
So what are your thoughts on that part?
Interesting. So I think holograms are really, really interesting. I did some work with a lady a while back who presented her TED talk via hologram, which was amazing. It was unbelievably brilliant. So I
Mm,
think the kind of technology is really, really amazing and really interesting. I think I think it's an interesting idea about I think you'd have to buy into the fact that your voice was going to be saved for posterity. I don't think it could be something someone else can make a decision for you about. I think you'd have to agree that it was okay for your voice to be maintained. But I guess, you know, in many ways, families have, you know, I can remember when I was little, you know, we had the first time we got you know, a digital camera for the family, and we would take little videos of us doing things as kids. You know, we've always had ways of remembering people who've passed, and
mm,
I guess now this is just the latest iteration of technology enables us to keep a much more 3D version of it.
mm,
But I think it does have to be something that we personally sign off on, because y- your voice is very personal. It is the outermost expression of your innermost thoughts.
mm,
And so I would want to know that my voice, my thoughts, my ideas were either going to be kept just with my family, or were only ever going to be used for something
mm,
really effective. But it's an interesting question because, you know, people like you have your voices out there on every platform, everywhere, in podcasts, in video form. You know, who knows what could be done or how your voice could be used in the future.
mm,
I think it's very interesting to think about how we manage that as a society
mm,
moving forward, because it's only going to become exponential. More people will have a bigger digital footprint and
mm.
a vocal footprint. So how do we manage that?
Well, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, we're on a video, we're on audio, right? And we are on email, right? And
Mm,
or we're on text messaging voice also. So
mm,
your voice is out there in the digital world, no matter if you like it or don't like it.
no.
But the now the question comes up is privacy, and that's another topic we can talk about much
Yeah.
later. But that's something to think about. So thank you again for understanding that. You know, before we go to the next topic, there's a segment that we started on season 3, which is a rapid fire round. In this rapid fire round, there's some words and sentences. I don't know if you have heard the season 3, but it's kind of exciting. So you're up for it?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So the first word, or I should say the first phase, is going to be voice ID.
Complicated, interesting, exciting.
Okay. White noise.
Oh, that's taking me back to trying to get my baby to sleep when I when he was really, really small. Oh, okay, let's not go there.
Uh, confidence.
Byproduct. Confidence is a byproduct.
Introvert versus extrovert.
When it comes to voice, irrelevant. You can have incredible introverted speakers, you can have incredible extroverted speakers. So it's just how we show up in those spaces.
Hmm,
So irrelevant.
okay. Video versus audio.
I'm a podcast lover, so for me, it's always going to be audio.
Okay. Frequency.
Voice wise, that makes me think about pitch and really using your authentic pitch so that you can use your voice as fluently and cleanly and for as long as you need, and not trying to be something that you're not. So higher pitched or lower pitched than you actually are.
Hmm. Okay. Let me ask you this: high or low pitch?
Optimum. Your optimum pitch, because we all have it. That's when our vocal apparatus is in its like perfect position.
Hmm.
And that way we're not doing damage. We can talk for as long as possible and we sound authentic.
Hmm. Okay. Fear versus phobia.
Okay, phobia, clinical, much more difficult to deal with. Fear, everybody has it. There are many, many ways to deal, particularly with the fear of speaking. It's completely normal. It's your body doing what it should be doing.
Hmm.
It's absolutely correct. But there are so many workarounds and ways to use your mind that put that fear in reality and in perspective, so that it doesn't hold you back.
Okay.
Phobia is very different.
Okay. How about body language?
Critical. Absolutely critical. We need body language in order to the body language counts for so much when we're speaking.
Hmm.
It's vital that we get that congruency between what we're saying and what we're doing with our bodies. Because if we don't, the message becomes so muddled and people don't know how to deal with it.
Hmm. Okay. Script.
If you need it, use it. I would argue that many, many people have an incredible knowledge of their topic and do not need a script. So for many people, it's a comfort blanket. They
Hmm.
probably don't need it.
Okay. Radio versus podcast.
Or podcast for me, please. I want to be able to choose who, when, and where.
Okay. Awesome. The last two is going to be Emma.
The last, sorry,
The Emma.
Emma. Authentic.
Okay. And
Authentic.
the, and the last one is going to be back to basics.
It's really back to basics for me. It's really important that we simplify so we can do.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Emma, for playing that rapid fire round on season 3. You know, let me ask you this: when it comes to voice and public speaking, okay,
Mm.
what does someone need to do in order to get to public speaking? Can I just go up to the stage and start speaking? Do I go to a wedding and start doing the MCs, because that's kind of a public speaking, right?
Mhm.
So, what are your thoughts on that part?
I think a lot of it will come down to how you feel about yourself. So the way that I think, the way that I often talk to my clients is how we think about ourselves. The thoughts that we repeat to ourselves become our belief system. So if we believe that we can go and do public speaking, then the chances are we're going to do a relatively good job of it because we're not getting in our own way. Most people don't have that. Most people will think I'm not enough in some way. So I'm not experienced enough, I'm not old enough, or I'm too old, I'm not
Mhm.
young enough, etc. And so that gets in the way. So I would say, in order for you to be able to do the kind of speaking you want to do, whether that's keynote speaking, presenting at work, starting your own podcast, going and doing MC at weddings, whatever it might be, if that's what you want to do, I would suggest you start with a mindset piece and work on why are you best placed to do this? What skills do you already have that enable you to do this?
Mhm.
um, why do you want to do it, as in what's your compelling reason for going and doing this thing? Because if it's entirely selfish, it's probably not going to work out in the best way possible. So I would say really, really start with a mindset
Mhm.
and then start small. So go
Emma,
and do something.
yeah, thank you, Emma, for that. Should I go to an event or public speaking or whatever it is as that I need to be perfect, or should I go with the attitude that it's okay to f up a little, screw up a little? Because I mean, we are humans after all. I mean, that's just what back to basics is all about, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we do need to make mistakes, but it's okay to step back. So, what are your thoughts on that part?
Perfection is really, really unhelpful when it comes to speaking. There are no perfect speakers. They don't exist. And if by chance we ever watched a perfect speaker, like perfectly crafted, perfectly delivered, we probably find it a bit boring or not entirely authentic.
Mm,
So messing up, making mistakes is really human.
mm,
It's very engaging as long as we deal with it really well. So if we mess up, so say we said the wrong word, that I was doing a recording today and I could not say race and ethnicity. I kept saying wraith. And I kept doing it. And I just had to laugh to myself because I just couldn't get the word right. Now I could have reacted really badly to that and had a panic, and the audience would have then reacted to me having a panic. So
mm,
I dictate how people react to mistakes.
mm,
So perfection is not helpful. Just bin the idea. It puts too much pressure on everything.
mm,
How you deal with any mistakes that you make dictates how the audience deal with it. So accept you're going to make them, be okay with making them, and just know how you're going to get yourself out, how
mm,
you're going to get to the other side.
mm.
That's really, really important.
Yeah, thank you, Emma, for that. You know, there's a lot of people that I know who wants to do MCs for an event.
Mm.
Okay, and not they're not public speakers. They're just regular people like us
Hmm.
who wants to just go to a wedding and do MC, but they're really, really scared and embarrassed that if they do F up, but that's okay, right? I mean,
Yeah,
I told them, listen, just be yourself,
yeah,
tell a joke here and there, and if the joke, flops, that's okay.
yeah.
But people will understand because you're not a profession. Even if you are a profession, I think it's okay too. What are your thoughts on that?
Definitely. I think, as I said, how you behave will dictate how the audience behaves. So if you do tell a joke and it falls flat, and then your voice goes up and your breathing comes up and your body tenses up, and then the audience is going to get this sense of like anxiety from you, and then they react to that anxiety. They start to feel anxious themselves, and so the whole thing can escalate upwards.
Mm,
So if the thing is to try. We talked. I said earlier in the quickfire round, confidence is a byproduct. This is exactly what
mhm,
I mean, right?
mm,
You don't get confident and then go and start doing MCing. That is never going to work in any reality ever. You
mm,
go and do it. You get it right. You get it wrong. You make a mess. You
mm,
do well. That's when the confidence comes, because you're like, I can do this. I can cope when it goes well, and
mm,
I can cope when it doesn't go well.
mm,
I'm getting good at this. And that's when you really start to build the confidence. And that's when you can do more exciting or stretchy things.
mm,
But the confidence has to come as from doing, not from thinking about getting confident and then going and doing it. Just
mm.
won't happen.
Emma, thank you again for coming on Back to Basics. And I really enjoyed having a voice to voice conversation between both of us. The topic is very, very relatable to me.
Mm.
Because I am getting into the realm of the public speaking, the realm of the event speaking. So
Yeah.
it seems like we get scared, but it's okay. So I mean, that's just what it is, right? And I want people to understand that people will screw up along the way, and that's okay.
Hmm.
Even if it is video, I want people to be confident about it. If there's vocal and voice and podcast, don't be scared. Just do whatever you can. So, Emma, do you have any last words to all my Back to Basic listeners and my viewers? And how is your journey on Back to Basics too? On top of that,
Sure. So I think my piece of advice for anybody getting out there is just bear in mind that good speakers, great speakers, they are not born, they're made, right? They're made from messing up, they're made from practice, they're made from learning, they're made from reviewing how they do. That's how good speakers become great speakers, or, anxious speakers become confident speakers. So they're made, not born. So everybody has the possibility to become a really, really good communicator. And Girish, I've loved having this conversation with you. I will talk about voice till the cows come home, very English expression there. But I've really enjoyed our conversation.
awesome, Emma. Thank you again, and hopefully we'll have a voice, 2.0 version on season 4, and then we'll have a great time. And I really had a wonderful time with you, Emma, and hopefully you and I can work offline and other projects. It seems like that we both are aligned with the same topic, and I hope Back to Basic people will listen to this over and over again.
Absolutely. Thanks, Girish.
Thank you again. So, guys, we spoke with Emma today, didn't we? And we talked about the basics of voice. We talked about, well, you need to be real when you're speaking. You need to be real when you're on camera. I mean, I just gave an example of a person who's an actor versus interviewing and he gets really nervous. Don't be nervous, just be yourself. I mean, that's just what it is. Obviously, you'll have to put a shield in front of you, but just be real. Now, as usual, as always, there's a quote of today, and hopefully Emma will like this quote. The quote is, people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did. But people will never forget how you made them feel. Because honestly, no matter what you say, you need to feel right. That's just what it is. Now, as usual, as always, what do we always say at the end of the episode? Everything in life goes back to basics, and that's what we did today, guys. Guys, season 3 is almost over. Please subscribe, review, everything else. And everything in life goes back to basics. I'll see you next week. My voice was okay.
The voice is great. Yeah, it's lovely. It's got a really lovely modulation to it, as I said. So it's sort of, biologically, we are programmed to feel secure and safe with those lower pitches. So because you got that lovely chest resonance, it makes your listeners feel held and secure.
Thank you.
Hi guys, thank you again for tuning in to Back to Basics and listening to the excellent episode that we had today with our guest. With your love and support, we do need you to at least rate our show, review our show, because it does make us stronger day by day, week by week, as I usually say on my episodes. And there are 3 things in this episode that it makes a hit for me, which is the content, the guest, and definitely the host. So guys, take care, God bless, and remember, everything in life goes back to basics, and that's what we did today, guys. Guys, take care, God bless, and see you next time on Back to Basics.